everybody? It is Tuesday. Oh, hold on. I need to close my window shade. All right, that's better. All right, Mikkel is in. How you doing, buddy? Charlie, it's good to see you. Gabriel, welcome back. I'm glad to see you again. Carl Easy, how are you doing? If you are in Periscope or YouTube land, leave me a comment. That's the way I can see you guys as I am restreaming, and that's the only way that I know that you guys are there. Amy Lynn, how are you doing? All right, Yolanda, you are back. All right, I hope everyone is having a good day. Guys, shoot me a message. Let me know how things are going COVID-wise where you're at. Are you on lockdown? Are things opening up? How is things going for you guys? As I am still here in Los Angeles, I have not moved yet. I'm on Hollywood Boulevard, and we're still making our way through. It seems that we could be on the verge of closing down again. We could be on the verge of opening. We could be on the verge of full out war. We could be on the verge of whatever else is scary out there that they're wanting us to be scared of. But we're not going to fall for all that because we are critical thinkers. And we also know that there is a lot of craziness going on out there. Yes. Well, Hippie Tally, Christina were here yesterday. Are they here today? I haven't seen as the people were rolling in. We will see. Dr. Submarine says, terribly, I think the loneliness is getting to people. I would absolutely have to agree with you. And as I've been saying on this morning show for months, which is we are in a psychological experiment that we did not sign up for. And we're all dealing with it to the best of our abilities. Some of us have better tools than others. Some of us are learning new tools to work through this, but it is a situation nonetheless, and we're dealing with it. I mean, I live in Hollywood, on Hollywood Boulevard. I can tell you that people's anxiety and they're on edge and they're stressed out and they are lonely and they're pissed off, and this is not going to make for a civil society. And then, of course, you have our favorite culprits telling us what we can or cannot believe what is going on, which is the evil, pathological, insane media that is trying to push us in one direction or another, because on top of every lovely thing else that we have going on, it is an election year. And so that's what we're all dealing with. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about, guys, is Carl Easy says, just listen to that episode with Dr. Gervais. It speaks to me on so many levels. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you, Carl Easy, for checking it out. That was certainly a fun episode, and I really enjoyed his idea of putting together your own personal philosophy and making sure that you're not adhering to a junk philosophy. I found that incredibly helpful, especially what's going on now. So, guys, one of the things that I wanted to discuss is we're living in this manufactured time. And when I say manufacture, I mean the narratives that everyone is trying to make us subscribe to. And if you listen to the show, you know that I am not a fan of the media and mainstream media in general. News, movies, television, music. I find all of it underwhelming, to say the least. Let alone, I do not enjoy being preached to, and I don't like to be propagandized. And so with that comes this whole world where we're starting to see a lot of the faults of the media and the games that they're playing, and it's moving so fast and so loose that I personally feel that the media they're losing their own grip of the stories that they're writing and the misinformation that they're putting out there, and they can't even keep track. And for my friends or people who I'm acquaintance with who follow the mainstream media and think they are helpful in all this, they tend to, they'll give me a CNN article and they're like, do you believe what's going on up there or out there or with this or whatever? And I look at the article headline and I can see that it is this sensationalism and clickbait is blatantly obvious. So I look at the article and I don't even need to read it because it's been years since I have read a CNN article where I look at it like, yeah, I'm not going to read that. That's just garbage. If you look into the article, you'll see that there's a lot of speculation, conjecture, assuming, mind reading. I mean, it is cognitive distortions galore. And if you work in psychology, if you understand cognitive behavioral therapy, you can work your way through the article and realize what crap it is. And a few years ago, AJ and I did an interview with Eric Weinstein. And one of the things that came up was, this was a few years ago, we are looking at the salaciousness of the news media, and we were having a laugh. And one of the questions was, well, if we're now seeing how much fake news is actually out there, if it's becoming that apparent to all of us, how long has this been going on? Because you have alternative news sources that do not support the mainstream articles. I mean, there's been so many different stories that with citizen journalism or independent content creators, they're getting film. They're actually people that are there. We're all connected now. So the media piece that we've been seeing has now been documented by other people, and you see an unedited clip, or you see more of the story, or you see a clip or a story that's more in context to what is actually going on, and you see how completely different it is from the mainstream story. And you're like, well, that doesn't make sense. And if you've been following this and you see it day after day after day, you get to a point where you can't even take anything that the news says seriously. They've ruined their credibility. And then you just start paying attention to news sources that you deem credible, or at least are honest with their bias. And there's plenty of those news people. Charlie says, if you follow the news, it'd be wise to be selective about what you read and believe. Being selective is the key word. Absolutely. You have to find people that you trust, or at least journalists who are somewhat self-sufficient, because they have no reason to lie to you. They haven't been bought or sold. You know, like Joe Rogan just got a $100 million deal from Spotify. You can make the argument that with $100 million, he's now been bought and sold. Where previously, when he was running ads on his show and slinging for Onnit and Athletic Greens or whatever else, he was doing that on his own, and he was getting those ads himself. And as somebody who does podcasts, and a very popular one at that, we tend to accept the ads that we enjoy. the products that we like. So somebody like a Tim Pool or an Andy No or some of these other independent journalists, content creators, they work for themselves. They have a couple people helping them. They're not pushing an agenda, and if they have a bias, they're blatantly honest about what that bias is. Andy No being one of them, honest about his bias. Tim Pool, honest about his bias. So it gives you something that you can at least feel good about and understand and know where they're coming from, so that at least you don't have that to work through. You don't have to guess what the agenda is. It's up front. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because we're dealing with so much of it now. One of the questions that I had asked Eric when we interviewed him a few years ago was, how long has this been going on? Well, one night I was recently thinking about, when was the first piece of blatant news that I personally can think of in the last few years that was just a blatant lie, fact from fiction, where the internet had given you a different story than what the mainstream, lamestream media has given you. Because this is important. Because if you learn cognitive behavioral therapy, which I believe everyone should learn, we do a heavy classes of this in all of our programs. Why? Because if you understand cognitive behavioral therapy, you understand critical thinking, and you can work your way through problems in a much better fashion to get you closer to your goals. Without it, you're swimming without a life raft, right? In an ocean of water. Cognitive behavioral therapy gives you an operating system for your mind because it is so flawed, yet so powerful. And even some of the flaws can be enhanced with how powerful the brain is. So using cognitive behavioral therapy and the powers that it gives you and understanding how your mind works, for me, I wanted to think back. What was the first story that I can think of? And you guys tell me in the comments. If you're on Periscope or YouTube and watching this, please shoot me a comment. That's the way I can see you guys as I'm restreaming. And if you guys are here on Instagram, tell me the first time that you noticed the wedge between reality and propaganda in the news media. Right? So a story had popped into my mind, and this was the one, and I brought this up. This is the one that first alerted to me how disjointed the media and reality was, or at least let's not even call it reality. Let's call it the internet and the media, right? Two warring factions. It's only till later that I've realized one is reality and one is propaganda. But let's look at the earliest incident that I can think of where there was this giant divide between the two. And I'll tell you. Now, here, I'm probably going to talk about something that I'm probably going to get in trouble about, but guys, I'm just tired of watching my mouth about everything that I have to say, because all I'm trying to do at the end of the day is give you guys more tools and philosophies and psychological ideas and how to live your life to the fullest. And if I have to breach certain topics that are now going to get me in trouble because of that, so be it. I'm tired of this. Anyway, here we go. Here is the story that I first realized was different from what the media said and what the internet said. Do you guys remember the Ahmed Mohammed story, aka Clock Boy? Do you guys remember this story? In September 14th, 2015. Do you guys remember this story? So, if you do not remember this story, let me refresh your mind about it. There was a teenager who went into his high school class who, Charlie remembers this, so who brought in what is debated as him saying that he built a clock. And then somebody mentioned that he said that that it resembled a bomb. And because he was, his name's Muhammad, and he has, I guess, a Muslim background, that he was demonized or vilified at school for trying to stoke Islamophobic fear in this clock. Now, the internet came back with, well, actually, he didn't build anything. He just took the back off of a Radio Shack clock. Okay. Now, a digital clock. Somebody who I respected by the name of, or still do respect, by the name of Richard Dawkins, even tweeted out this photo of the back taken off of a Radio Shack digital clock. And it was the same inner workings, the same guts as this clock that he said he had built. Now, I am not stating anything of what I believe in this story of what I think is true and what isn't true. The only thing that I am suggesting is this was the first time that I can remember seeing such a drastic split of narratives about what the internet said was going on and what the media says was going on. And I remember the two warring factions of narratives, one of Islamophobia and hate and vilification, and that he was an incredibly bright young boy. And I don't know. I don't know the guy. I wasn't there. I don't know this kid or his family. So, but that was one, that was the media portrayed. And then the internet said this is a blowing up of a story over nothing because it's just the back of a clock. And regardless of what the media is saying, let's not get carried away here. Getting carried away with the accusations that the mainstream media was throwing around at the staff at the school and what the media, the internet was saying. My point, as I said, was that was the first time that I had saw such a large divide in two warring factions of information. Now, I just had this conversation with my neighbor. Are you guys familiar with the story of the cages in Munster, Germany? Charlie might know this story. There are these cages that are hung from a chapel in Munster, Germany that have the remains of certain religious activists from when the printing press was invented, and the information, and the first book that was published on the printing press was the Bible. Now, if I get anything wrong here, my apologies. I'm trying to rehash this to the best of my abilities. Up until that point, the Bible was only interpreted by those who had it and had the ability to be able to read it. When the printing press was developed, the Bible was the first book to be published, and therefore many people had gotten a copy of it and now could be interpreted by many people in many different ways. the information that was shared now had become was now given to those who want to wield the power of that information. Well, you see, and the reason I bring this up is we have a new tool that disseminates information that is much more powerful, much more speed, and much more loose than the printing press. You remember, yes, John von Leyden and two others in 1536. Yes, Charlie knows the story. And if you want to hear the stories about the cages in Munster, then you should listen to Dan Carlin's Prophets of Doom podcast. It gives you the story and the chaos that ensued because of the printing press and the Bible and Martin Luther, who said that anyone can now dictate what the Bible says. Anybody can interpret it for their own reason. And how a besieged city was captured by religious fanatics who decided to interpret the Bible in a way that gave them power over the people of the city. And what the chaos that ensued by warring factions of different interpretations of that Bible. This ensued because of the information of the printing press. Look where we are at now with a information cannon that is so much more powerful than anyone from 1536 could ever understand. And if you don't think that people are using the internet and this information for their own gain, much like the people did in 1536, then you're out of your damn mind. So I can not only in 1536 did people take to the printing press and the information that was given in the Bible and interpret it for their own profit and power. You better believe that there are a lot of people, since this information had took on such a life of its own, and we can, and the studies show, Jonathan Haidt has put together the book In the Coddling of the American Mind, that when smartphones hit the market and in a mainstream way in 2009, that basically all hell has been breaking loose ever since. And what we're dealing with right now in the Western civilization is the fallout of mass dissemination of information and propaganda for the direct benefit of just a few who have the power to manipulate what that information says. And if you think that's impossible or highly unlikely, you really need to watch or listen to the story of the Prophets of Doom and the Cages of Munster, Germany. Charlie says the Lamberti Tower, to be accurate, that's where the 3 cages of Munster, Germany are held, and they have the remains of 3 people that decided to use the printing press and the Bible and interpretation of Martin Luther's ideas to their own advantage. It is an insane story, but so insane that it exploits the natural tendencies of the pathological human condition of the will to power by any means necessary. And so all of us people who are proactive, who want the best for ourselves, who are involved in self-actualization, the betterment of yourself and the world around us, we have to look around and make sure that we have our eyes on the people who are not only not interested in self-actualization, but are interested in something else, power. And the people who are interested in power for their own purposes and who will do anything to get that power are pathological by nature. They have a need, a want, and desire to control what you do, what you think, and what you prescribe to. And you need to be aware, because for all of us who are involved and want to be powerful people in our own right to self-actualize our potential, need to be on the lookout and keep our eyes on the people who are actively looking to work against us and capture us, mind, body, and soul. And with that, my friends, is where we need to keep our minds and our thoughts, because we can see the cages of Munster in Munster of Germany happening right now. This is the perfect example of that story from 1536 and the chaos that ensued because information was now in everybody's hands. Well, imagine, not only is information in all of our hands, I am speaking to you through it. I am connecting to you through it. It is more powerful than anything that anyone could ever have thought about. And you remember when I said a few weeks ago, people tend to look at all this technology and they're like, oh, it's just the tool. It's just how you use it. And I came back with, yeah, a tool like a jackhammer is to a hammer. And if your job is to hang a picture on your wall and you have a jackhammer to use in order to do that job, your wall isn't going to be looking so pretty. And that's what we have here, my friends. And keep that in mind as we are going to continue to see a separation between what is reality and what pathological, power-hungry control freaks want us to think and feel. Now, Charlie says, it seems like people are only interested in fake news and cheap porn. Well, cheap porn, I don't know. They're interested in free porn, Charlie. And that... and, the internet is certainly has copious amounts of that. All right, guys, I gotta go. I have things to do, a data to get on about. Oh, so lastly, here's how I wanted to wrap this story up with Ahmed Mohammed Clockboy, with the Cages of Munster Germany and the story of Prophets of Doom. And what did Charlie say? Lamberty Tower. What was his name, Charlie? Jan van Leiden and two others in 1536. Here's what I want you guys to think about. The most powerful entities in the world need you to continue delivering service to them. They need you to continue carrying water for them. And if you quit listening to them, they're going to have to move on to people who will. So my advice to you is the advice that I have been stating on this show and on the Art of Charm podcast for years, which is to cut your cable, stop reading these news sources that have been messing with you for years, and start giving your attention towards your own endeavors and your own skills building. And on the side of that, I want you to find independent content creators who are going to be honest about the work that they are doing, the work that they are creating, and their message that they're trying to get across without some underhanded, covert bullshit where they try to sell you one thing. Hey, look over here, while they're picking your pockets over here. That is our show today, my friends. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you guys. You know what? I will see you guys tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful week.